being here. I hope everyone had a good weekend. Enjoyed the Academy Awards. Well, last week wasn't much of a budget week, was it? We'll see if this week they can accomplish anything different as the special session begins. But I think what we will continue to see is the same failed leadership and the same failed budget process. Once again, last week, Republicans failed to do what they said they were going to do, work on the budget. Meanwhile, Arizona is still on the wrong track. And the phony budget Republicans and Governor Brewer are cooking up looks like another plan to eagerly cut jobs and education and push Arizona further down the wrong track. It's not a solution. In fact, it makes the budget crisis bigger for longer. We are losing police officers off our streets and teachers from our classrooms, but they eagerly want to cut more, such as cutting $750 million from education. Republicans also want to eliminate the State Department of Juvenile Corrections, which will cost 1,000 jobs to be lost. This phony budget won't solve the problem because they want to shift the burden of juvenile offenders onto county governments, who already have budget crises of their own. Republicans' failure to lead and create a balanced budget solution has just made times even tougher for Arizonans. Representative Campbell.
Thank you, Representative Lujan. Thanks for being here today. As Representative Lujan mentioned, Republicans not only failed to initiate the legislative budget process last week, which I want to point out is the budget week that they dedicated themselves to solving our budget crisis, but now they're also working on a phony budget that will not solve our problem. And to illustrate what I mean by a phony budget, I want to give you guys a few examples. The first example is one that we've talked about several times, and that is the fact that Governor Brewer and Republicans want to take health care away from approximately 400,000 Arizonans. Arizona voters have already approved this health care for kids and seniors when they passed Proposition 204 twice, and I want to underscore that twice. Voter-passed initiatives like this are protected by the state constitution, as we all know, and illegally cutting hundreds of thousands of people from their health care will trigger only a lawsuit which will result in health care eventually being restored back to the Arizonans that lost their health care, as it should be. And this does not solve the problem. It's just another phony attempt to cut money from our budget, which in reality will yield no result and actually cost the money, or cost the state money in the long run. Second example I want to use is the Republicans' proposal to cut $750 million from education. And please keep in mind, this comes on top of the education cuts that we saw last year, which were the largest in the history of this state. Arizona already ranks at the bottom of the nation in terms of funding for education, and our children's classroom sizes are growing exponentially. And if you want to attract jobs, it's very simple. You have a quality education system. It's not rocket science. The best incentive to get new businesses to this state is to have a quality education system. But with the budget moves made last year by the Republicans, that incentive does not exist in the state right now. And with the planned budget moves this week, Republicans are only going to lead education further down the wrong track and actually create a bigger hole for this state. And then finally, I want to discuss state parks. This is an issue that I've talked about with many of you several times in the past few months. Last year, we saved approximately $9 million by sweeping state parks funding. That, in turn, is leading to the closure of 21 state parks this year, state parks across Arizona. And I want to point out state parks, in many cases, that are located within rural communities that rely on these state parks for their economy. And keep in mind that we may have saved this $9 million last year in the short term, but state parks bring in approximately $260 million per year to Arizona's revenue stream. And most of this money is from out-of-state people, not in-state residents. So in reality, we actually lost well over $200 million to the state coffers by closing the 21 state parks and sweeping that $9 million in funding. And now that we have a bipartisan effort moving forward to actually find an alternative funding source for state parks in HGR 2040, which passed by the committee week before last, it's still being held up, though, by one person. And that person is Representative John Kavanagh. He's the Appropriations Chairman, and he is refusing to let this bill either get a hearing in Appropriations or withdraw it from that committee. And it's beyond me as to why we are going to do that in this day and age when we're looking for creative ways to find more revenue for the state and tools to really continue furthering economic development in communities across our state, especially the more rural communities. And we saw this time and time again last year with the Republican leadership, It was a lack of vision for our state's future, it was a lack of leadership, and it was a complete failure to solve the state's budget crisis. And it looks like this week is going to shape up to be more of the same. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Representative Farley.
Thank you, Representative Campbell. Boy, by the time you get to the seventh special session without balancing the budget, it's not really all that special anymore, is it? It's true, Arizona is on the wrong track, and it's due to a failure of leadership. We can see that failed leadership in the way the Republicans are handling the budget. All this year, all last year, the Republicans lied to the public. They told them they would act in a transparent way to deal with the budget. Instead, they continued to craft a budget behind closed doors, smoking cigars, deciding on the fate of Arizona's school children, their teachers, and thousands of jobs. And last year, when they eliminated a rule that gives the public 24 hours notice before a bill is heard, the public now has no notice. Republicans still refuse to work with anyone to solve this budget, the public, Democrats, or even the business community. I've been particularly amazed at the way that the Arizona Chamber has been coming out against these cuts to health care, the Prop 204 repeal. I don't really understand what constituency the Republicans are serving anymore, because I don't see anybody who wants to go through what they're going through, giving up billions of dollars in federal money, potentially looking at skyrocketing health care premiums, hospitals closing down because of unreimbursed expenses. There's nothing positive about that budget move. And when even the business community is against it, who are they serving anymore? Hard for me to tell. They would rather toe the partisan line and play political games by having competing budgets than work together through balanced budget solutions. Republicans have been in office for more than 40 years, and they have failed to lead again. It's definitely time for a change. I would like to open it up for questions.